So my name, before I go on too far, is Licia Rester-Frazee, and I'm the Managing Director of Programs, Admissions, and Marketing here at the university. And I just give you a big welcome in person and also streaming for coming tonight to tonight's event. That's entitled, What is Soul-Centered Living? An Introduction to Spiritual Psychology. So thank you for coming, and give yourselves a hand for coming tonight and streaming. So USM is known as being the best in the world in its programs in spiritual psychology. And that's what we're going to be exploring and learning more about tonight. You are going to learn about USM's transformational 10-month certificate program in soul-centered living. And what does that actually mean? What does it mean to live a soul-centered life? To live a life that is filled with joy, with loving, with fulfillment. A life that is inspired and inspiring. And that's what we're going to explore tonight. USM is also known as the Worldwide Center for the Study and Practice of Spiritual Psychology, and that is no exaggeration. We have students that come from, of course, all over California. We have had students from every state, and we also have students that come from all around the world to the 10-month certificate program. There have been students from Japan, from Kenya, from Canada, students from Ecuador and England. We even recently had a student from Dubai, as well as Kazakhstan. I remember that we had a father and daughter who actually traveled once a month from the north of Norway. And you may not know that length of commute. It is 26 hours one way, every month for 10 months. So if you happen to live in Orange County, you know where I'm going. You're like, oh, the 405? Oh, I'm not sure. Just take it off the table. Take it off the table, because that is how powerful and how incredible this program is, that people would literally fly from all over the world to come here once a month. So, and you'll hear, of course, much more about that. So what does it mean to live a soul-centered life? What does that even mean? And more importantly, how can this program support you in living into that kind of life, in experiencing a life that just goes beyond your wildest imagination and dreams? That has been actually my experience. I have been participating at USM since 1997. I was a student at that time. I haven't left. They just keep on trying to drag me out, and I'm like, no, I'm going to stay, because that is what I've experienced. When I began here, I was living on paper a very successful life. I had a great career, I was making great money, I was in a long-term relationship. So on paper, I was doing good. And yet, there was something missing. There was something missing. And when I came here, like you, the first night I sat in and I went, oh, I'm home. I'm home. And I haven't left since. So that's the opportunity here for you. You are going to have the great opportunity to experience two people that I can't even think of who could be better at answering these questions. What does it mean to live a soul-centered life, and what is spiritual psychology? These people have devoted over 35 years and have supported thousands of people around the world in answering those questions for themselves and supporting them in transforming their consciousness and their life. And they will be your facilitators tonight. Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick are pioneers and worldwide leaders in the field of spiritual psychology. They are renowned educators. They are the founding faculty and co-directors of USM, where they have designed, developed, and facilitated these profoundly transformational programs in soul-centered education. They are both licensed marriage and family therapists, and Mary Hulnick is a licensed clinical psychologist. And their book, entitled Loyalty to Your Soul, The Heart of Spiritual Psychology, is now in 8 languages and 12 countries worldwide. And their most recent book, called Remembering the Light Within, A Course in Soul-Centered Living, was just published in February by Hay House. That is their publisher for both books. And just so you know, both of those books are available in the back for purchase. So I already shared with you a little bit about my experience and why I'm still here and why I feel more enthusiastic about this work than I ever have. This work is alive. It has transformed every aspect of my life, and I know that without the devotion of these two people, I would be in a very different experience, both within myself and externally. And I am certainly not unique. Every single student that has come to this university has been supported in transformation by these master facilitators. So please welcome them to the stage, Drs. Ron and Mary Hulnick, USM's President and Chief Creative Officer.
All right. Well, thank you, Lucia, and nice to see you all here. It's great to see people who, several of you who are USM people from some time in the past, and we haven't seen you in a while. And good to see you in particular, Michael. I mean, because you almost died, so it's good to have you back with us.
Wow, it is great to be here with all of you, and not only do we have grads here with us, which we always are so grateful for, but also we have a number of people who are in the current Soul-Centered Living program, and we actually start the culminating course in that series on Friday night, which is the 6-day lab. So there's a lot of anticipation right now, at least inside of me for that. I know it's going to be extraordinary.
So welcome to all the online folks. I guess the furthest person from USM who's online right now, whoever you are in Australia, we welcome you. Australia, right now it's about 25 minutes to 1 in the afternoon tomorrow. Let me think about that one. I find that fascinating.
Well, it actually works very well for them. It's the middle of the day, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We're the ones who... Anyway, all right, so soul-centered living and spiritual psychology, that's what we're here to talk about this evening. And of course, this is what we love to be involved in and what we have been doing for the last, I guess we're in our 37th year.
I think we should stop saying how many years.
Well, we started when we were 10.
Yes,
so
right.
It works out okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at this. It's what you came here to learn about. It's a different way. It's not a different way of being in the world. It's a different way of perceiving the world. I have to say it that way. Not necessarily new. It's been in existence for thousands of years in different mystical traditions, but very unusual for this time and this age that we're living in. And hopefully you'll get a sense of what we mean as we go through this evening. So let's start with USM's mission. So it's communicating the principles and practices of spiritual psychology worldwide through the process of soul-centered education. So there's principles, there's practices. Soul-centered education is highly experiential. We'll explain why in just a minute. So I'm going to be giving most of the actual presentation here, and then Mary and I will take sharing afterward, because we found over time it's hard if people are trying to go back and forth, and it's kind of awkward. So Mary said, okay, I think that's very true, you do it. So here we go. So the first thing we want to do is look at definitions of certain words, because I don't want to use a word and then it's not clear what I'm talking about. So the words that we'll start with are knowledge and education. Knowledge and education. And we usually think we know what these words mean. Let's take a closer look. So let's start with knowledge. And usually we think of knowledge as knowing about something. If you have a lot of knowledge, and you've been to a lot of classes and you know a lot about something, and if you really get to know a lot about something, you could take that as high as becoming a doctorate in that particular area. So knowledge, to know about, to know of. And education, one who has an education usually has a body of acquired knowledge. So this is pretty standard in what goes on at universities these days and people's understanding of those words. So less known, but important for our purposes, is to take another look at these words. So if you go back into the Greek ancient language, you find that the word knowledge stems from the word gnosis. And at that time, it had an additional meaning, that in addition to knowing about something, it was to know something experientially. So, obvious example. You know all about ice cream. When you taste it, and you have the experience of it's a different thing. So when you know something, it goes far beyond knowing about something. There's a lot that I know about Mary, but I'm probably the world's foremost expert. I know Mary, and Mary knows me. It's a whole different thing. So imagine if you take this into spiritual teaching, where you're a Bible student or you know all about all of these kinds of things, versus knowing that inner spirit that resides within. A whole different quality of experience. I hope you get what I'm talking about. Similarly, the word education in Latin comes from the word educare, which means to draw out that which lies within. You think about that for a minute. Because if you're going to do that, it assumes there's something inside that is draw out a bull. So this is why we do this work in highly, highly, highly experiential forms. Otherwise, we could sit here and talk to you all day long. All you'd get is knowing about, and you'd amass a body of knowledge. You know, it's like, I got to get the next book. That's the one that's going to take me where I want to go. I got to take the next online program. That's the one that's going to take me. But as long as you're in the world of knowing about, you can just go so far. You'll get a lot of information. You'll have a lot of knowledge in your mind. Experiential is the path to really knowing. So you get that idea. So at USM, soul-centered education is very, very, very experiential. Ask any grad or student who's sitting in the room. And when we presented these ideas to the Dalai Lama, which we did, and he couldn't have been more in agreement with what we were talking about, and he has a very famous quote that is, "My hope and wish is that one day formal education will pay attention to what I call education of the heart." See, he knew that. And we talked with him about it, and he just knew it. I wish we could have talked more. So USM is education of the heart. The heart, or this that we think of as something as heartfelt, is our key into, let's call it the spiritual realm, but we'll define it more as we go. So, spiritual psychology then, we want to know what is it and what difference does it make. I've got to readjust my chair. I don't know if I'm in the right chair. I'll make it my chair. All right, so here's another one of these words. You go look up psychology in the dictionary, you're going to find the science of mind and behavior. But if you look at the word psyche in the dictionary, you're going to find breath, principle of light, soul. What happened? Psychology has gotten sidetracked. Well, but think about it. The medical model, which is what psychology has gone into, is dealing with symptoms and behavior and thoughts and things of that nature. So it's that is the definition that works for that. But where is the soul in that presentation? Which is the heart of it. And it's really not there very much. So we call this spiritual psychology. It's really redundant, but we put that word spiritual in there in our attempt to bring it back to what it was inspired onto the planet in the first place. My first teacher used to say, the reason that psychology was inspired onto the planet originally was because humanity had forgotten why it was here. I said, okay, I get it. And in all these years that we've been doing this, I haven't seen any change, in that is what it really is all about, and that's what we do with it here. So, spiritual psychology recognizes that there is something we call a spiritual reality, and we'll talk about that a little more, and begins with the principle that rather than humans who have souls, which is the way we're depicted in a lot of, let's call it spiritual stories, what we really are souls who are having a human experience. Or more accurately, souls who are using a human experience. And then that, of course, brings up the question, for what purpose? What are we doing here? I mean, look around this room. We're some strange-looking people. What are we doing here? So the purpose, from our perspective, is one thing and one thing only. We are awakening. It's like we've taken on what Mary loves to speak of as spiritual amnesia, forgotten who we are or what we are, and what we are working here is to remember and to learn. You understand, if you knew this before you came into this embodiment, there'd be no point to be here. So the being here requires, in order to make use of this, we have to have forgotten. So it's not a bad thing. It's a learning opportunity. And this is the way that we treat it here. So we define spiritual psychology as the study and practice of conscious awakening. We're going to do it with our eyes open. We're going to be very purposeful, very practical. We're not going to go off into the woo-woo. I mean, we're going to really look at this in ways that make sense. So it brings up the question of, what does awakening mean? What does awakening mean? So the best way that we have learned to describe this, if you look at this horizontal line, we refer to this, Alicia, that's supposed to, you told me. We keep having this thing because sometimes this doesn't work. So Alicia is indoctrinating me with the doctrine, touch the screen, touch the screen. We call it physical world reality. By the way, this is one of the things, the hallmarks at USM. We got to have fun doing this. I mean, I'll tell you honestly, I never experienced anyone who I considered a really good spiritual teacher who did not have a keen sense of humor. So I like to walk in those footsteps. Physical world reality, which we refer to as the goal line of life. Why? Well, because it tends to have polarity. There tend to be negative experiences on one side and positive experiences on the other. And the goal of life, which is true for most people on this planet, by the way, at this time, is to go from negative experiences to positive experiences. And to the degree you do that, you're considered a success. So higher paying job, successful parents, all we have accepted ways of talking about these kinds of things, and that's where we go to. And nothing wrong with that, and a lot of our program is about how to do that. It's just that's not the major part of it. So while all this is going on, there is a whole other part of it going on that we refer to as the spiritual context, or the soul line. Goal line, soul line, really easy to talk about. The soul line, this is one of the hardest things, has nothing whatsoever to do with the degree to which you're successful in physical world reality. It has totally nothing to do with it. Well, what does it have to do with? When you're working on the soul line orientation, what kinds of experiences are you looking to have if they're not this positive and negative thing? Now you want to hear something really interesting, and you wonder, because of this, it seems strange there's so much angst, I'll call it, going on in the world. Every major religion and every mystical teaching throughout time is in total agreement that if you start opening up and awakening onto the soul line, what you will come to is an enhanced experience of love in life, in your life. Independent of anything. You can be a very loving, successful person. You could be a very loving homeless person. They're independent. Independent. That's very important to understand. So, what happens? How is this working? Well, we are living at a time that is very, very, very unusual. It's been prescribed in different teachings for literally thousands of years. I mean, if you're into Eastern philosophy at all, this is like the end of a 25,000-year cycle and the beginning of a new one. It's called a yuga, Y-U-G-A, if you want to look it up. So what has been happening over the last 25,000 years is that the population on the planet has both been rising spiritually and becoming more goal line prosperous, let's call it. So we refer to that as there are obvious physical gains. I mean, think about this. Every single road in this country, or any other country for that matter, was paved and cars driving them within the last 125 years. That's all. Is that not an amazing thing to think about? Much less airplanes and going off into Mars and places like that. So the gains are more obvious to see. The spiritual gains is a little more challenging to see. But think of this, per capita, meaning based upon the number of people alive today, there has never been a more peaceful time on this planet than exists right now. I know that's a hard one to swallow, because we see we're directed to so much of the negative that's going on, of the war that's going on. But the fact of the matter is, it's never been more, and we haven't had a major war in quite some time. So just something to be aware of. So people who are interested in this generally are also asking these three questions. Who am I? I think a better question would be, what am I? What's my purpose? And people who are asking those questions, and I suspect it's every one of you, because I don't know why you'd be here if you weren't interested in these things. How can I make a more meaningful contribution and live a more fulfilling life? How many people can relate to that question? See, this is it's always this way, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting in this room. So it brings us up to the next question, well, what is involved in awakening? Well, what do we do? How do we approach this? So the place that we like to go to begin to take a look at this so it can direct your consciousness into the idea of it, we go to this quote by the Persian mystical poet Jalaluddin Rumi. And he said, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely easy for him maybe, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Within yourself that you have built against it. And this is, you hear things all the time that people recite these things, like the kingdom of heaven is within. Well, that's basically what he's talking about. What you're looking for is inside, not out there. You will never find it out there because that's goal line stuff. So your task is not to seek for love, not to seek outside, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And this is the promise of USM. This is what we do here, and I would claim we're the best at it in the world, and to dissolve them. To learn how to dissolve experientially, to have that experience in class, not as a concept, as an experiential reality. I'll tell you this, the first time you have the experience of resolving one barrier, the game is over, because you now know what the rest of your life is going to be devoted to, because it's so powerful. So let's take a look at what does this mean. What does it mean to dissolve a barrier? Because again, we're introducing you to the spiritual context. So we're shifting now. We're not talking about out here in the material world. We're shifting on what is the process that goes on inside of a person. What goes on inside of you? So we'll see how this works. I just want to test this. We gotta. So let's start with the top line, physical world reality, and top meaning on the surface. So as you start to go inside, the first thing that you are aware of is this thing called the mind, the mental realm. And you have all these thoughts and we're all very, very much aware of that. We wish the thing would leave us alone a little bit more in the mental realm. If you go deeper inside, there's another level called the emotional level. And that is how you feel about things in the world. So you think about things in the world, you feel about things in the world. And those two levels taken together, this is what psychologists mean when they talk about the ego. The ego is your mind and your feelings as you relate in the world. If you go a little bit deeper, you come in, there's another level called the unconscious. We are not big proponents of trying to dredge up stuff from the unconscious, because we have found over time it's in there for a darn good reason. And that when you're ready, it'll come out. It's like time-release capsules. When you're ready, when you come to a place where you're ready, the next thing will emerge. Now, what all of this has in common is that it has polarity. There's that positive and negative quality to it. So we say, something happens and we think, well, that's a bad experience. That's a great experience. And sometimes different people having the same experience will call it one or the other. So there's no agreed upon that one is one or one is the other. Depends largely on culture, depends on how you were brought up, depends on a whole lot of things. Now, let's say that this is all one typical perspective which is going on in your consciousness. Beneath it all, there's a whole other level that we refer to as the authentic self. It's a whole other level. Well, notice there's no polarity. Well, what goes on at that level? Well, nothing really important. just things like unconditional love, and derivatives, little things like peace, acceptance, compassion, beauty, joy, freedom, gratitude, humor, happiness. Nothing major, just some nice stuff that goes on there. So imagine if you could access this part and start living more from this place, regardless of what's going on in your life. That's what this is all about. Can you do that? Is that even possible? So let's see how this works. So let's say, and this is one of the things we talk about, that you have a project you're working on to write a book and you've been unable to do it so far. And we're doing work and you're working, I'm going to start that book. And we said, what are you going to do? Well, between now and next month, I'm going to write 30 pages. Great. Write the 30 pages. We support you. So you write the 30 pages, and you come back next month, and you now I've got 30 pages. In order to do that, you have had to transform 30 pages worth of what used to be resistance into cooperative, positive energy. You understand that? Otherwise, you couldn't have written the 30 pages. You would just find reasons not to do it. Here's where the fun begins. Because a message now goes out in consciousness and says, Ron has written these 30 pages. He has transformed that much energy. Now, keep in mind, these polarities, they are all in balance. In other words, you're balanced this way and this way. You exist right here, your ego awareness. But you're out of balance now. Because a message is going to go out in your consciousness, and this is really where the fun begins, kind of, in a way. Because inside, your ego is going, well, Ron has demonstrated he wants to shift to a more positive way of being in life. So, okay, so guess what? All of the mental and all of the emotional and some of the unconscious material that supported you not writing the 30 pages in the first place is going to come bubbling up to the surface for you to deal with. How many people have had that experience? You did the diet, you did the book, and it got very uncomfortable inside. At that point, you have a choice. Will you just not write anymore and go back to the way it was before, or will you continue? Because you get to this place, you are now in what we call the divine unknowing. You're out of the realm of your comfort zone. Most people give up at that point. USM students don't give up because, for one thing, you have a support of more than 100 people in the room who are going to encourage you and form a community that will encourage each other to keep going. This is one of the main parts of this class that we love so much. So, what happens next? You do the work. What does that mean? You let go of whatever on the mental was stopping you. You let go of whatever on the emotional was stopping you. You let go of whatever has come forward from the unconscious that was stopping you. This is the dissolving of the barriers that Rumi was talking about. And that's what this work is all about. Every time you resolve one issue, you move up more on that soul line. And that's why we say this work is highly experiential. You can't just do this sitting and reading a book. It's not going, oh, wow, here's the next book. This will be the one. When I read this one, I'll really have it. Well, after about the 1400th book, you realize it's probably not going to happen that way. So, the other way that this happens, here you are, and something happens out in the world that disturbs your peace. Something just happens, and I don't like that, that's terrible. For example, let's say, a certain election. It's a hot topic these days. So something has disturbed your peace. You feel that at the emotional level. So without knowing how to do this kind of stuff, people will look to change out in the world whatever happened so that they'll be free of the emotional experience. I don't know if you've ever tried that. I'm still looking to find someone for whom that approach worked. It just doesn't work that way. What does work is so the physical will be what happened. What does work is finding the mental that goes along with that particular. See, anytime you have a negative feeling, there's going to be a belief that you have that got violated. See, something you think shouldn't be that way is that way. And your response is negative. And so, same thing, you now have this going on in your consciousness. It brings up all of that material. You resolve it, you move forward. Does that mean you have to like what's going on? No, it doesn't mean you have to like it. It just means you understand that its main function for you is to surface a place inside in search of healing. You're getting a sense of what we're talking about here. All right, so how can I say this? The biggest thing about all of this, and this is the hardest part, is that when we look at something and say, it would be one thing to say, I don't like it. But see, when we bring that, it's not right, it's not good, it's bad, it's evil, it's all of those kinds of things. We make things wrong. We are entering into judgment. Reality is what happened. There was an election. That's what happened. What I take it to mean, what it means to me, is what your reality is in that moment. It's this business of entering into that process and doing it habitually, because we grew up that way. That's what has to be worked with. That's what Rumi was talking about. To seek within yourself the barriers that you have placed against your natural state of love. Once you start doing this work, we're not really talking about what's going on out there. We're talking about what's going on in here. We're changing knowing about to knowing. Knowing is experiencing. So you get the sense of what we talk about. David Hawkins put it this way: perception is edited observation. What we perceive, what we actually see, is edited observation. Who does the editing? Your ego. The authentic self doesn't edit anything. All it does is love. That's its nature. What is it based upon? What's the editing based upon? Your personal beliefs. What you believe to be true. Therefore, what you believe determines what you perceive and experience. I mean, if you can really accept the possibility that your life experience is largely determined by what you believe to be true, if you can bear or dare to entertain that possibility, then you're on your way. Lots of people, you look around this world at what's going on today, they are unwilling to consider that possibility. Our way is the right way, and we will kill you to prove it. You think about that. So, what's the barriers? What's the major barrier? Anybody ever find themselves doing this? Anybody? I'm upset because, look at reluctant hands, I can see them. I'm upset because. So what we did was we polled the class one time to look for what are common upsets. What are some of the things that people are talking about? Here's what we found. I thought these were great myself. I'm upset because you don't listen to me. That was the major one. One woman stood up in class and she says, "My boyfriend says I don't listen to him. That is so hard to hear." Okay. I'm upset because people don't understand me. Everybody should understand me. If you don't understand me, there's something wrong with you. Another one. I'm upset because life is unfair. I mean, life should be fair. That's big today. Today, that is very big. Life is unfair, and we're going to do everything we can to make it fair. I'm upset because I'm working too hard. This is another big one today. A lot of people are just so caught up in work, it's like they haven't got time to breathe. I even get upset at myself. I'm upset because I don't behave the way I should behave. And of course, if all else fails, and you live anywhere around here, traffic is terrible. I'm upset because traffic is terrible. So maybe if you live in Orange County, it's really justified. Well, is there an alternative? And if there is, what is it? What's the alternative? Well, what if it was possible to identify and connect with the place inside where the upset resides? What if it were possible to actually find a way to go inside and connect up with the part inside that is upset? And what if it were possible to heal that place, to literally let go of it? Well, then what would happen? What would happen when things happen outside? Well, your life would become this. Because what you would find is that all that's left, it's like you take off sunglasses, you see more clearly. What you would find is that within, this is all that's there. I mean, I know that might sound simplistic, but after 36 years of doing this work and seeing thousands of people do this and see that this is where they get to, I'm convinced at this point. So the question becomes, well, how do you do it? You have to be willing to have a shift in what we call perspective, to move into the spiritual perspective. Let me give you an example of what changing perspective looks like so you get a sense of it. So let's say that you're outside here on the corner and you look up, and there's an airplane going by. So your perspective, and there's that airplane. See, now your perspective is body work, doing it together. So the first thing, and I think this is probably the hardest one of all, the first thing in the new perspective you must be willing to do, you must be willing to take personal responsibility for every one of the upsets that you experience inside. And quit blaming it on people and circumstances out there. This is not a path for the faint of heart, folks. I guarantee you that. But what path of value is? So you must be willing to at least experiment with the willingness to take personal responsibility for the upset inside. Just nothing else, try it on for size. That's what we do here. All right, so the spiritual context, or the soul line, wherein you are already a divine loving being, having and using your goal line experiences for the purpose of awakening on the soul line. That's what we do here. And that's why it's more than just a one weekend thing. This goes on, this is not something we do easily. It takes some doing. Any one of the, how many current students or grads do we have in the room? So you look around. You could talk to these people about it. They better be happy to share their experience with you. All right, so let's talk about spiritual psychology principle. So this is the big one. All becauses, meaning anything that disturbs your peace. Anything? Do you really mean any? I really mean anything. Anything that disturbs your peace, that upsets you, are in reality triggers to unresolved issues seeking resolution and part of your spiritual curriculum. It's what you're here, what you came here to do, is what we're going to suggest that possibility to you. All right, so what else have we got here? Thus they are a God-given opportunity for healing. What does healing mean? Healing means finding that place inside that's in pain or suffering, letting it go. It's really not hard to do once you start to get the hang of it. It's just that we're not used to doing it. We weren't brought up that way. All right. So let's look at another one. How you relate to an issue is the issue. Now again, it's not changing the thing out there, it's changing how you relate to that thing. That's really what we're dealing with here. You have a choice. You can continue blaming your upset on outer circumstances. That's one choice. The other one is you can accept personal responsibility for what's going on inside of you. There aren't any other choices. It's either one way or the other. Guess which way we're selling? Right. Number 2. How do you actually do this? What's involved? Well, as we said, the first step is that you're willing to take responsibility for it. And what we find is that we start to move into this. We define healing as the application of loving to the places inside that hurt or are suffering. So let me be real clear here. When we go inside, what do we find in there? That the essence of who and what we are is loving. So what the process becomes is learning how to access that essence and apply that loving to the place inside that's disturbed, and it heals instantly. That's pretty nifty. Easy to do? No. Doable? You bet. Absolutely. All right, so let's see. How do you resolve Rumi's barriers?
How do you dissolve?
How do you dissolve Rumi's barriers or resolve the issues that it's that? And this is this is it. You can take this and you take it home and you could start doing this tonight and and have fun. Number 1, give the upset of disturbance a voice. A good way to do this is to write it out. I am really upset because, and you just write it out. When you're done writing, we strongly suggest you burn it. If you don't want to feed that stuff back into your consciousness again. You identify the limiting beliefs or judgments that the upset is based upon. Well, what's upsetting about that? Well, it's because it shouldn't be that way. It should be this way and that way and the other way. So you identify those limiting beliefs or judgments. And here's the key process. You let go of the limiting beliefs or judgments. You just let them go. And the way that we do that is through what we call compassionate self-forgiveness. How do you let them go? For what? For ever buying into those beliefs and judgments in the first place. Those were sold to me. I don't have to continue subscribing to them. You can let go of any belief in your consciousness that you choose to let go of. You really can. All right, so awakening is remembering who you are, the divine loving being behind your misinterpretations, and here's the deepest of them all, that you are somehow unworthy and deserving of punishment and suffering. And unfortunately, a lot of teachings on this planet indoctrinate you into that kind of a thought pattern. which simply goes against reality. So I forgive myself for ever buying into the illusion that I am somehow unworthy and deserving of punishment and suffering. It's just not true. The truth is that I am a soul using a human experience for awakening, and my essential nature is loving, joyful, peaceful, creative, grateful, compassionate, and free. I'm sitting here telling you that we have seen this happen in people thousands of times. It's available. That's what we do here. So, is there more? Yeah, I think I said that one already. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. No wonder. I'm having deja vu. So the essence of healing, awakening, and authentic wellness is all the same. It's loving. In that sense, all the religious teachings are accurate. Let's just go there and prove it for ourselves. What happens when we do that? When we start out, the ego is the big voice in our heads. But every now and then, we hear what's referred to as the still small voice within. You start doing this work, and what begins to happen is that the ego voice begins to get softer, and the authentic self voice starts to get louder. You keep going, and what happens is the authentic self voice now takes charge and becomes the master of your life. And the ego takes its rightful place as the willing servant, because we need an ego to function in this dualistic environment. Otherwise, you understand, you couldn't even go to work in the morning if you were just a divine being and totally enlightened, because why am I doing this? You would just want to sit there and just be blissful. I mean, who wouldn't, So we need a certain amount of ego left in order to operate in this world effectively. But then you become someone who's a way shower, and your major job, as you perceive it, is bringing love wherever you go. So it's a beautiful thing from our point of view. So what is soul-centered living? It's awakening into the awareness of your essential loving nature and living your life more and more and more from that awakened state. Not bad. What kind of an educational curriculum is required to support you in your conscious awakening and living into a more... Well, this one, obviously, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. So do you want to talk about that, or is Lisa going to come and talk about that? Or?
No. Well, I wanted to share a couple of things. I'm aware that this is a tremendous amount of information. It's kind of like high-level cliff notes about what this work really is. And in the classroom, we bring it down into very practical processes that meet the students where they are, that meet people where they are. They're very relatable in terms of what your current experience is that's going on inside of you, that's going on inside your life. So it's not theoretical. It is very, very practical. And we present it really in very bite-sized chunks as we move through the program. And the program is designed very systematically. It's sequential and it's cumulative. And in the course of the program itself, we work with 33 different, what we refer to as soul-centered basic skills. And these are skills that are designed to assist people in the transformational work inside themselves. It takes some practice to learn how to listen from that deeper soul-centered place inside, not only to other people, but to yourself. It takes practice to learn to look beyond the ego, the personality that's presenting itself, and truly see the loving essence that is this person, the uniqueness of who they are, and really their giftedness and the beauty that resides within them. So over the course of time, we work with practicing these 33 soul-centered basic skills, and some of them are profoundly empowering. For example, we have 3 different skills that work with responsibility. The first one has to do with choice, with simply becoming more aware of the choices that you have, both inwardly, inside yourself, but also outwardly. We work with the second level of responsibility is ownership. It's what Ram was speaking about, of rather than being a chronic, I'm upset because, and blaming everyone and everything for the condition of my life, that I begin to recognize that the common denominator here is what's going on inside of me, and that I really do have the opportunity and the power within me to resolve and dissolve those upsets, to really heal, which gives a direct path to the authentic self, which not only connects you with your loving, but connects you with your joy and with your creativity. And very often, people in the program become very deeply in touch with their soul's purpose. We had a beautiful sharing last month from a young woman. She's in the program now. She has worked in the entertainment industry for many years and been very, very successful. And yet there had been a quality of lack of fulfillment, lack of meaning. It's like, yeah, she was doing this job. It was paying her well, but she did not have that feeling of fulfillment or satisfaction. And through one of the processes last weekend, she came into the awareness that her great love as an undergraduate student had been American Sign Language, and that had been her major. And so in the course of that educational process, she had worked with people in the deaf community. And in the process, she had the realization, that is my calling, that is my love, that is the way I really want to serve. And she's changing up her life to move back in that direction. So what can I say about this? This was the Cliff Notes, but you come into the program and who you are and the content of your life really becomes the grist for the mill for you. And at the same time, in the program itself, we do a lot of work in 3-person processes. One person is the sharer, one is the facilitator, and one is what we refer to as a neutral observer. So for every process that we do, you sit in each of those 3 chairs. You're the sharer, so you get to bring forward whatever content you want to bring forward, having to do with, can be an aspiration or goal, it can be a challenging situation that you're having in your life, it can be an inner disturbance that you're aware that you're experiencing. And then after you're sitting in the sharer chair, then you move to the neutral observer chair, an extremely valuable chair, because you learn to look much more through the eyes of neutral observation, of unconditional love and acceptance, of just being a loving presence, a battery of loving for the person who's sharing and for the facilitator who's responding. Then when that rotation is complete, then you move into the facilitator chair. And in the facilitator chair, the processes, all of these basic skills, when you're in the facilitator chair, are designed to connect you with your authentic self, with that consciousness of unconditional love and wisdom that resides within you, and to respond accordingly to the person who is sharing. this is an incredibly valuable training, because not only are you learning what it's like to be of service in that way, but you're learning how to gain access to that place of unconditional loving, of acceptance, of wisdom, of creativity, of humor and joy inside yourself, and bring that forward in support of someone else. So there's another aspect of the program that I'll mention briefly. Ron touched on it. We do focus in the program on what are your heartfelt dreams? What are your aspirations? What are those visions that you have for your life? And what are your gifts? And we do processes a few times during the weekend that are designed to assist you in clarifying those dreams and beginning to take steps in moving them into manifestation. Ron also mentioned that the program is amazing in another way, in that you become a part of a community of individuals who are doing this work of awakening together, and that is a beautiful thing. It is an incredible level of support. It is an educational community, and people make lifelong friends as they go through the program. So what we'd like to do is open it up. If you have a question about anything that we've shared, or you're wondering, well, how would this education, how would these principles and practices relate to this situation that I'm experiencing in my life at this time, we'd be happy to hear your question, what it is that you'd like to share, and respond to you. So we won't take a long time for this, but we'd like to give an opportunity maybe for 2 or 3 people who have a question that they'd like to ask about what we've shared.
Going once?
No, don't pressure them, Ron. Let's give them enough time.
So anybody have any question about anything that we've said that you'd like some further
All right,
clarification?
Jennifer. And if you'd go over here to where Kevin is,
Okay.
there's a mic, and
Then
we're
you'll
going to
be-
ask you
You'll be next, okay?
to share your name. And yeah, go right over there to Kevin. He'll give you the mic.
Okay, so my question...
Start with your name, first name.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
Hi.
My question is, if there is an upset from the outside that you truly feel that you're not being listened to or honored when you're communicating with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you deal with that?
Well-
And be compassionate and loving, and you feel the other person really isn't listening.
Yes, yes. So there are 2 things here. There's what happens, and then there's what it triggers inside of you. So
Okay.
what's happening out there is not listening, someone who's not hearing you. Is that part of what you're saying?
Yes.
And it triggers a reaction inside of you?
With that, or they'll respond, I didn't say that. I didn't say
Well,
that.
let's slow this down a little bit, because if we can slow it down, then I think we'll be able to respond to your question in a way that will actually assist you and be meaningful to you.
Okay.
So this person doesn't listen to you. So what reaction does that bring forward inside of you?
That I'm not being heard, or
But the feeling, what would be the reaction, the emotional reaction?
upset.
Upset, but what kind of upset? Would it be hurt? Would it be
Hurt.
hurt?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That makes a great deal of sense.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah. So I'm not being heard, and what that triggers inside of me is hurt.
Yes.
So then part of the work in this process that we do, working with the principles and practices of spiritual psychology, would be to assist you in exploring your beliefs about what it means when someone doesn't listen to you.
Oh, okay.
So, what does it mean inside of you, about you, when someone doesn't listen to you?
What do you take that to mean?
Okay. What do I take that to mean?
Yes.
When someone that they're just not honoring your feelings, or that, I don't know. Sometimes
Well, let me ask the question
that's where
again.
the upset comes in.
Yes, I understand that. And if that upset could speak, what would it say about what that behavior, that way of relating to you, means to you or means about you?
It feels that I'm not being validated.
All right? Would another way of saying
Good.
that would be, I don't feel valued?
Yes.
Yes. So when someone doesn't listen to me, I feel hurt, and it bumps up against the belief inside of me that when people listen to me, they value me, and if they don't listen to me, they don't value me.
Yes. Yes. That's what happens. Or the
Yes.
feelings. Yes.
Yes.
The meaning.
Yes. So this is a great example of it. Miguel Ruiz wrote the book Four Agreements. Are you familiar with that book
Oh,
at
yeah.
all?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you know one of the agreements is don't take anything personally.
Yes.
Yes. That's what we're talking about here. Which is an extremely difficult thing. And when we do take things personally, then the opportunity ultimately, and if we had more time, I would work you through this more systematically, but it would be to come into a place of compassion for yourself and recognize that if somebody isn't listening to you, that doesn't mean that what you have to say isn't valuable.
Or that you're not valuable.
So I forgive myself for buying into the misperception that I'm not valuable, and that if others don't listen to me, it means they think I'm not valuable.
You got it.
You get the direction?
Yeah.
You
that-
get
Very
the
clear.
idea of it here?
Yes. Yes.
See, and eventually you come to the place inside where you realize that your worth and value has nothing to do with what anybody says or thinks about you. That's really totally up to them. It's like there was a book written by a woman named Terry Cole Whitaker a bunch of years ago, and I believe the title of it was "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business."
Yes.
You know,
So how do you create healthy relationships with people?
well, you do this work
Yeah.
to clear these things up. Let me take it just a step further with you so you can get a sense of that.
Okay.
See, one of the other principles of spiritual psychology is outer experience, what happens out here, is a reflection of inner reality, what's going on inside my consciousness. So, if you consider that possibility, and you consider the possibility that relationships are mirrors, they mirror back to us our majesty, our beauty, our giftedness, but they also mirror back our unresolved issues. So in the example that you brought forward, see, it may be that there is a place deep within your consciousness that holds a misidentification that fundamentally you are unworthy. Very often this is the case. This is part of the human condition. It's not personal to you. But this is the biggest misidentification that people hold. And how does that happen? We forget who we are. We forget that we're divine. We lose connection with the experience of ourselves as the presence of love. And so we buy into this misidentification of unworthiness. And then we get involved, but we're not remembering all of that. But we're involved in relationship, and then we have experience where we're sharing something that's meaningful to us, something that matters to us, and somebody that's important to us is not listening to us. And so then it triggers that unresolved issue inside of, I'm not being heard, I feel hurt, I feel like I don't matter, that what I'm saying isn't important, and that I'm not that valuable.
So then you have some relationships where you never have those kind of experiences. So you're saying that person is mirroring that unworthiness, and then there are other relationships where you don't have those kind of...
Are mirroring something else to you.
Okay, that makes sense.
See,
It
and
would be
that's-
terrible if they all mirrored the same thing.
Yeah.
Be kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be, like, I guess what it's leading to for me is just,
Hold on, Mary.
is being more involved with healthier mirrors. Like choosing
but
healthier.
You know what? There was a book some years ago, I think it was called Lord Fowle's Bane.
It was.
That was the name of the book. And and Ron and I developed this joke. You can't escape Lord Fowle's Bane. In other words, part of our orientation is that we each come to the earth. We take a body, and we come with certain gifts that we came to share, but we also came with certain issues that we're here to heal. And our curriculum will be delivered to us.
See,
Not as a punishment,
Yeah.
but more as an opportunity for us to learn and awaken and to heal what we came to heal. So as much as you might try to arrange your life in such a way that you would never interact with anyone who would push your buttons, I have not found anyone who's been able to do that. If there's someone here who's been able to do that, would you please come forward and you can teach this class?
Yeah.
You know, if you, just as a way of analogy to know what we're talking about, if you came into this lifetime and one of the things that you came here to learn was to how to take care of plants, let's just say, what do you think that you would most assuredly find lots of in your life?
Taking care of plants.
A lot of plants.
Yes.
You would probably not have a life in the Gobi Desert.
No.
So the thing we need to learn is the thing we draw to us. And so if what we came here to do is to learn how to be more, how to access the loving place inside more and more and more of the time, what we will be confronted with are experiences where that's not happening, which forces us to deal with why it's not happening. And so this is why we say outer experience is a reflection of inner reality. We draw to us the places where we have learning to do. But if we treat them as things I don't want to have anything to do with, then we're just going to keep coming back over and over and over again to deal with the same thing, to learn the same thing, because we're not learning it. See, we do have freedom of choice. You could take as long as you want. The thing is set up that way.
So does this give you some idea of how this works?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
We
Thank
didn't
you.
have to say you have to like it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to just process it.
But you know what?
Yeah.
The thing I'd like to just complete this sharing with is that when you're doing this work in the classroom with your classmates, it is extraordinarily supportive because you will be loved and supported every single step of the way. And when we do large group sharing, it's designed to help people bring things to resolution and potentially to complete them for the last time. So thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
sharing. Thank you.
So, gentlemen in the back, we'll do this one more.
Hey everybody, my name is Ryan. First, I actually would like to thank Jennifer for being vulnerable and open. I learned a lot just in that few minutes, so thank you. Okay. My question is, our authentic self is pure love, and we are divine.
Yes.
That's beautiful to me. And our purpose is to grow in our awareness and awaken. Mm-hmm. The contradiction that I struggle with on an intellectual level, not so much on my authentic self level, but is why does our authentic self need a human experience to awaken if our authentic self is already awakened?
Good question.
Yeah, that is a great question. Do you want to? Yes, that's a wrong question. There are Mary questions and there are wrong questions.
The question that you're asking, in a way, requires a cosmic answer.
Yeah.
That's an answer I cannot give you from my own personal experience, but I could tell you my understanding of it. So my understanding of it is that this whole thing, this whole creation, let's call it, has come into manifestation the way that it has, is because the nature of spirit is awareness. And so, for whatever its reasons, which I don't in any way presume to know, spirit, let's call it, wanted to have the experience of that which it knew, that which it was aware of, but did not have any way to have an experience. So it was upon that basis that this whole business of physical world reality was its manifestation. This is why it has to have negative and positive. See, you understand, let's take the experience of light. Like there's light in this room. You cannot have an experience of light if there isn't any such thing as dark. There has to be a continuum. We can't measure light. We can't measure dark. What we measure is degrees of light. We really are only measuring one thing, but we have words that we have created so that we could talk about, we don't walk around saying, wow, it's 34 degrees of warm out there. It's really something, isn't it? So we have hot, cold, light, dark, love, and whatever you want to call the opposite of it. In order for there to be an existence, you have to have both. So the creation of this was so that which is the awareness could have different experience of that which it was already aware of. Now, that makes sense to me. Do I have any way in the world of proving that? Of course not. The things that I'm liking reading lately are things that have taken quantum physics into deeper and deeper and deeper levels, and they come to the place where matter disappears entirely. There's only streams of energy, and they either appear or they don't appear. If you're familiar with any of that, the Heisenberg principle, where when you observe something, it comes into, you see it. But you cannot know in this reality, you cannot know how fast something is going and where it is at the same time. It's impossible to know that. If you know where it is, then it's not moving. If it's moving, it's never in any one place long enough for you to, it's that kind of a thing. So we just say, well, we don't know the why of it in that sense. We're just getting starting to really understand more and more about how it works in this reality. And that's what we focus in on. I love the question.
That's a great answer. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
All right,
So
you
we
want to?
have- Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to get 3 of them, but
Yes. All right. So we're going to take a few minutes now. We have some current students from the Soul-Centered Living program that we have invited to come and share their experience. So Heather, would you begin, please?
Hi, my name is Heather.
hold the mic a little closer.
Little closer, yeah. Hi. It's so lovely to be here to look at all of your faces and to just speak from my heart about what this program has really meant for me. And I thought to begin with just a quick question, like who in the room has ever been in that position where you wished life had an operating manual of any kind, right? Like maybe parents of teens.
Parents of teens, yeah.
Right? Maybe you've been home for the holidays and it was day 1 of a 5-day trip and you're totally out of patience, right? I think it was Dalai Lama night maybe tonight, because I think it was the Dalai Lama who said, if you think you're evolved or enlightened, just go home for Thanksgiving, right? So there are many times, maybe it's something more serious. Maybe it's, life throws us all kinds of things. Is it, a marriage that's crumbled or a diagnosis of cancer? I know from my own experience, I've had all of those that I just mentioned. And the metaphor that comes up for me is it's kind of like life is this interesting thing where, like if someone gave you a car and said, you get to drive it, but they didn't give you the manual. And occasionally you get in the car and you figured out like how to start it. And you're thinking like, check me out, check out my car, right? Like I'm cruising down the freeway, I've got this, I figured it all out. I totally accept when you hit the bump in the road. And then you're like, okay, this is so weird. Who knew this, like cars leak? Like there's oil that needs to be changed, there are tires that need to be, who told you you needed to do all of that? Where's the rule book? So like, where are the best practices? Where's my diagram for how I'm to handle it? When life throws me all kinds of things that we've all experienced in this room and online, right? That's what life is. You don't know what you're gonna get. And so when I look at sharing from my heart, like what has this program really meant for me? There are 2 areas where I thought, the biggest contrast is the way to share it with you. For me, soul-centered living was receiving the manual for life. And it showed up for me in how I experience myself inside, like my inner reality, and also in relationships. So I'll give you those 2 examples today. The first one was myself, like how was it to be me when I woke up in the morning before I went through this 10-month program? And what that was a little bit like it's Monday morning and you wake up immediately exhausted. The first thought that came forward in that conversation, the one, that continues to go on all day and all night. Like Ron mentioned it earlier, it's exhausting. It never turns off. But what was really remarkable about it is that it was almost always so critical and negative. Maybe you can relate. So the alarm goes off and I think, oh, it's Monday morning, and I jump in the shower and I get out of the shower, and then there's the ritual of like, oh right, cellulite's still there. Run to the closet, right? Self-cruelty. Run to the closet. Oh, it must be a skirts day. That vacation did you no favors. Get the kids in the car. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Lots of stress. Hurry, I hope. And then the worry, right? It's not even 8:30 a.m. All of what was going on. I hope no one's mean to my kid today. Oh, that, the social stresses of parenting. Now I'm on the freeway and it's LA. There's no traffic. I don't know what he was talking about. No traffic here. But so you're stressed. And the thinking that went on for me was like, why don't people drive like they have somewhere to go? Because I have somewhere to go. So it's just my whole frame of reference was so stressful, exhausted, like just chronically living for the weekend, but exhausted by Monday.
So if you can relate to that in any way, I mean, that was just really my inner experience. My inner critic was constantly going. And lots of stories. Stories like, I'm not doing anything right. As a career woman, married, 2 kids, trying my best. I want to be a good daughter. I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good friend. I want to be great at my career. I was doing all those things, but like a hamster, like exhausted. So that was my inner experience, was really not pleasant. And I kept thinking, and maybe you can relate to this, there's got to be a better way. Like, this isn't sustainable. I know on the outside it all looks pretty, but on the inside it feels awful. So I took this course, and what shifted dramatically is the level of relationship that I have with myself, even when none of the traffic changes and the alarm still goes off. Like Monday morning, ding, it's time to get up, and I think, welcome to the mystery. What's going to happen today? I don't know. Not in a Pollyanna way, in a true sense of inspired adventure. Because inside, the work that I did through soul-centered living was very much about how can I love myself deeper? How can I accept myself just as I am? And how can I forgive myself? It was about laughing more, LAF, self-love, self-acceptance, and self-forgiveness. And the second example I would share with you is an outside example in relationship, and it's remarkable. I was 18 years into a marriage when it became clear that it was complete. It was complete. And what's interesting, again, is the contrast of what that experience would have been like before soul-centered living versus after. So before soul-centered living, it would have been real obvious. It's his fault, he's to blame, and by the way, everyone in my life would have fed into that. Being good friends and people who loved me and well-meaning, they would have just said, well, of course, clearly he did X, Y, and Z. I mean, that's obvious. You had to get out. 18 years, whatever, who cares? You need to get out of that relationship. And so it would have just kind of fed this whole way of being that was so self-righteous. And what I really love about this program is while it was a struggle, it was a hard thing to go through completing 18 years of a marriage with someone and having 2 kids together. But there was an intention. There were 33 principles and practices of spiritual psychology that really kind of had my back. And what I was able to create with my now ex-husband was so beautiful. We set an intention, and he hadn't even been through this course, but just having the skills myself, having the time to practice and really own them. And because of him, he was willing to even listen and hear me out. We set an intention to create a relationship that was beyond any model we'd ever seen for a divorced couple. And we really have that. And so the contrast is stark to me, and I wanted to share that tonight with what you can create if you really want to, when you have the kinds of, the manual, if you will, the practices, the principles in spiritual psychology. So I'm not in a place of blame. I'm in a place with my ex-husband of loving. How can we be loving? How can we create a relationship that's based on mutual respect and honoring the time that we spent together? And what I did in my own healing was really about not finger pointing, which is just the easy route, right? But it's not fulfilling, ultimately. What I did is I went like this instead. That, you're wrong, it's your fault. What if I went like this? What would that be? What would I learn about myself in relationship? What lessons were here for me about the dynamic that I created for my part of it? And it was just profound healing and a beautiful reality that I wanted to share with all of you. So if you find yourself in a place where you're thinking, gosh, there just has to be something better. I just know that I can experience more joy, more nourishment in my relationships that I have, more purpose in the life that I have, more love in the work that I do, a more playful sense of kind of freedom and joy in my life, then I would say, get the manual. It's soul-centered living. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Ravi?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ravi. I'm a current Soul-Centered Living 1 student. I'm very honored to be speaking here. And so my journey probably begins about 2 years ago. I was living in Hong Kong, very successful on the goal line. I was running a company and, just living my life. A real workaholic. I drank a little too much. And now I realize it was really not coming from a healthy place. It was really, I didn't want to deal with my emotions, and that's what I was doing. I was just hiding. I had a wake-up call one day, and I was actually flying to LA that day. I got sick. I didn't think it was a big deal, but I got really sick. I ended up that evening in the hospital with septic shock. It was literally, my body was turning off. So it was a 50-50 chance of making it. So I'm lucky, I'm here. I spent the next 10 days in the hospital, and what came to me very clearly, a few things came very clearly. One, this is not a life I want to live. This is not fulfilling at all. Two, it's time to leave Hong Kong, which was a difficult decision. I was in a relationship, and I just knew it was time to go. And so I made those decisions that day. I went into the office, and I ran a company that had recently been acquired by a much bigger company, so I was under a very long contract. But I went in and I explained to them the situation, and we came up with a plan so I could exit over the next 1 year. So we did that. I moved to India to go spend some time with my mom, and it didn't work. Health just deteriorated. And during this time, Loyalty to Your Soul kind of became my go-to book. It's a brilliant book written by Ron and Mary. And I've probably bought 20 copies just to give as gifts because it's just the most incredible book. And, I was just thinking to myself, I really want to do this course. Synchronicity, a cousin from New York called, and he's a banker from New York, and so not really the kind of person that used these words, but he called me and he's like, I'm on the beach in Venice, California, and the waves, I feel they're very transformational. And I have a feeling you and I should spend time here. And I thought to myself, he doesn't even know that word. Like, how did this happen? So I spent a day thinking about it, and then I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to do USM. I'm going to move to LA and do USM. And so I did. So it happened, July of last year. I moved here in August. Happened so quickly. I came here, started doing my work. This was the biggest gift I've ever given to myself. A few months into it, I found out, well, I've always known, but it deteriorated a lot, that my kidneys have gotten really bad, and I need a transplant. Normally, I would have basically, I would have just basically waited for a deceased donor, which is an 8-year-long list, and gone through dialysis and just sort of, just been very small about it and done what I had to do and just not bother anybody. That would have been my whole thing. Is I don't want to disturb anybody with my problem. Through the course, I learned that, in the past I had difficulty receiving, and that was a big thing. I'm the kind of person that's I'm very easy, and I'm very happy to take people out for dinner and to buy people things, but I never like anything from anybody. And so this was kind of spirit testing me, that, I'm a worthy human being, and I need to get this, and I need to receive this. So, through the course, I received that gift of learning that. I went to Facebook with this. I had 7,000 views in a couple days, and I have a few hundred Facebook friends. So it was quite a big thing. I haven't yet found a donor, but 6 or 7 people came forward. It just hasn't aligned yet. I'm sure that it will. The other thing that's happened is I've really got a lot of strength, and I'm now working with UCLA, and we're launching quite a big global campaign to raise awareness for kidney disease. So I'm able to give back in that way, and that was just a huge thing for me, a huge win for me. So the way I look at life has really shifted. The level of self-acceptance and acceptance for others, self-love and love for others, is completely shifted. My life has shifted. It's not to say that there aren't ever issues. I had a big blow up with my brother the other day. But the way of handling it was completely different.
Yeah.
You know, it was a heart-to-heart talk, a real heart-to-heart talk. And I told him everything that was bothering me, and he felt comfortable enough to do the same. So that was really wonderful. So, you know, just to conclude, this is the last year that Ron and Mary are teaching this. This course is the best thing I've ever done for myself, and I highly recommend, if you have a feeling inside that you should do this, please do it, because it's going to be the biggest gift that you give to yourself too. Thank you all.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you. All right, and we have one other, Mary Jo.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo. I'm really honored to be speaking. I have friends here all of whom were very instrumental in helping me get into this program, one of whom is a previous graduate, one of whom is enrolled now. So my story, just a little bit about what happened and what it's like now. When I came into before I came into the program a year ago, I was involved in a long-term relationship, an unhappy relationship that I stayed in for security. I had what I thought was kind of a safe life on the outside. I had a house, I had friends, I was sort of, I thought just having the relationship was the right thing to do. But my partner, my spouse, got very, very ill. Cancer ill, bone transplant ill. And so I, leaped into action, as was, the thing to do, and I became the primary caregiver. And it was a long 4 years. I was burning out at work. I put on 40 pounds. I was stressed, I was depressed, and really miserable. I went to a party, and I sat next to an acquaintance that I hadn't seen in a lot of years, and I was basically telling her my story and how bad my partner was and how, everything was pretty much her fault, not the illness, but before that. I had a lot of I'm upset because, and I really felt that there was something inherently, that everything pretty much was her fault. And also that there was something really inherently wrong with me. And when I was describing this, she said to me, I said, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this without, this big disaster. And she said to me, well, what if there were another way to look at this? What if there were a way that you both could win? And I was kind of shocked. And I asked her, where did you learn that? And she said, USM. I had cruised USM in the year 2000. I did a drive-by. I did it again in 2010, and I didn't come in. I didn't have enough money, I didn't have enough time, I had reasons that I didn't. But in the midst of all this with the relationship, my 65th birthday was bearing down upon me, and I could really see a horizon. And I knew that something really was going to need to shift, or clearly nothing was going to shift, and this is how I was going to go down and out. And as I looked into the program, one of the things I heard that she was talking about was loving, just so much loving. And it really resonated. And so I decided, I knew that the year was going to pass, the 10 months, I didn't have the time, the 10 months was going to pass whether I did this or not. And that if I did this, I would have a supportive circle to process what was going on and hopefully bring me somewhere I wanted to go. I have been in recovery, I've done 12-step, I have done therapy, and it's all good and it all helps. But what it didn't do really was allow me to heal, really move forward. And that's what I heard was one of the promises here. So I leapt. It was a leap of faith. And what's happened now in these months is that I left the relationship in an honorable way. We sold the house. I found a perfect apartment. I rediscovered myself and was able to, with the help of my friends who took me in and put me at their, kitchen table and all the things that they did to help me find myself again. I've built a sanctuary. I'm having dinner parties. I'm reconnecting with friends. My heart is full of love. I'm not depressed. I'm not anxious. Traffic still sucks, but I don't really care. I have a fantastic new car that I love. Things have really shifted. And I know that it, to a great degree, was that I can feel it as a result of the program, that I was able to kind of get out of my way in a way to do this. So the thing I would say is if any of this resonates for you is this leap of faith, I would encourage you to take the leap, because what I found is when I did that, I flew. And that's what's happening to me. And if it can happen to me, I think it can happen to anybody. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
Wow.
Lucia.
All right, so what's
So,
next?
Licia,
coming back
if you
up
would
to
join
tell 'em
us.
what's next?
Yes.
Hello again. So first, I just wanted to thank all of our students who have shared tonight. Thank you so much for so vulnerably sharing and your stories. And Ron and Mary, always. Brava and bravo. Thank you so much. I know I represent thousands of students and grads who adore these two people and who just continually thank God for the fact that they have devoted their lives so that people like us can experience the majesty and magnificence of who we truly are. And that is really the opportunity here. So we are in the enrollment season now, and I believe Ravi shared this, and it's very important for you to know that it is accurate that this is the last time that Ron and Mary will be facilitating this program. So if you ever had a desire or a calling to do this program, I couldn't encourage you more to do it now. They are master facilitators. I am not exaggerating in that. I've been with them for 20 years now. They walk their talk. They live these principles and practices both at home and in the classroom, and they are highly effective in supporting people in transforming their consciousness and their lives. You can imagine that the classes are filling up quickly because the word went out very quickly that this was the last time that they would be doing this 10-month program. So we just encourage you, if you are clear at this point that you want to begin your application process, you can actually see Shabnam in the back of the room. Also, tonight is a fantastic time to talk to our fabulous admissions team. That is Ashley Whitaker and Karen Scott, as well as Nancy O'Leary, who is the Director of Education. She can answer your questions. I'm here to answer your questions. There are a lot of students and grads. Can you raise your hand one more time? All of them would be delighted to also share their experience and answer any questions about the experience of being students, if you would like that. So let's see. Oh, important. Classes start October 6th. October 6th. So they are one weekend a month for 9 months. And then there is a 5-day lab during the summer. And there's lots of information that you can get. We have an incredibly beautiful brochure that you can receive that gives you tons of information. Online people, there should be a link to request a call from the admissions team, and you can click that link to apply as well and get started in that application process. All right, so let's see. There are some events coming up. Do we have that, John Ruby? Yes, indeed.
Do I have it on?
It's on the side monitors right now? Okay, great.
Okay.
All right. So, Loyalty to Your Soul Foundations is a weekend workshop. It's an incredible way to get a really depthful taste of what happens in the 10-month program. Lots of people use that as a kind of a starter kit, in a way, to start their experience with USM. This year, we have a really exciting announcement. We are offering this for the first time, as well as in class, in-person participation. You can also participate as a Zoom participant, meaning that the entire workshop, all the activities, the trio processes, the large group sharings, you can do from the comfort of your home. So that's a huge new step for us. We're really offering that to people that are outside of the Los Angeles area. Of course, anybody here, we encourage you to be in person if you want to do that workshop. But for you who are streaming, this is an opportunity. We are limiting it to 48 participants. So we just wanted to give you that information. And I hopefully you can see the dates of the workshop up there. It's in August. So let's see, what else? Well, we also have cookies and refreshments. It's a time to enjoy our wonderful community, to ask questions. Ron and Mary are also going to be in the back. They would love to say hello if you want to say hello to them. And once again, we just thank you for the opportunity to share this incredible work. Thank you, all you folks online, for taking your time as well. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you. Thank you very much.